This is the 2024 Ford Bronco Heritage. It's in the cactus gray exterior with the regular plaid cloth interior, which the combination I think looks kind of nice. There are some differences from the 2023 to the 2024 model. The base trim level of the Bronco is deleted. The two-door isn't available in the Outer Banks anymore. There are some new color changes. And then there's one thing about the factory navigation now in the 2024 Bronco that I have to cover off when we get inside. Since this is the Heritage version of the Bronco, you've got a unique white wheel along with a blacked out cap with that bucking Bronco in the very middle. Now, one thing about the Heritage and the Heritage Limited and some of the other trims of the Bronco, it does come standard with the Sasquatch package. And the big benefit of that Sasquatch, it gives you different fender flares, beefier suspension, different final drive ratio, and a few other useful features. But there's one downside to the Heritage and the Heritage Limited when you look at that Sasquatch package is that typically it would come with beadlock capable wheels. And the big benefit of that beadlock system is that if you're airing your tires down, it helps to kind of mitigate the likelihood of the tire slipping off of the bead of the wheel itself, so off of the rim. So that's, obviously a downside, but if you're not going to be off-roading your Bronco, not as big of a deal, like if you're not going to do aggressive rock crawling, because that's when you're going to want to air those tires down. You still do have the option for either the part-time or the advanced 4x4 system. The advanced is going to be standard in the Heritage and the Heritage Limited trim levels of the vehicle. Since this is the Heritage version of the Bronco, you've got this unique white grille along with this beautiful Ford lettering in the very middle that's painted red. The contrast there, I just think looks really sharp. You've got your LED headlamps, fogs down below, and then two front tow hooks with the powder-coated bumper on top of that. One other thing that you're going to find inside of the Heritage, some steel dash plates. So if you are taking this thing off-road, you are going to be protected underneath this ride. Underneath the hood of the Bronco, you still have the same three engine choices that were available for the 2023 model. So it's either going to be a 2.3 liter EcoBoost, there's the 2.7 liter EcoBoost, and then the 3 liter, with that 3 liter being exclusive for the Raptor trim level of the vehicle. But the availability of the engines all over the place. The 2.3 liter as a default is going to come with a 7-speed manual transmission, and then you are looking at the option for a 10-speed auto, and then it's strictly a 10-speed auto and the 2.7 and the 3 liter as well. Power-wise, when you use premium fuel, this thing is maxing out at 300 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque, which is pretty respectable. And that gets cut down about 10% if you go for just a regular 87, but I'll touch on that one when we get to fuel. Underneath the hood here, a little bit of wiring all over the place. It's a little messy, but you can at least get to the basics. So easy access to top up your fluids, check change oil, and then easy access to the battery as well. You obviously want to make sure that you're regularly maintaining your ride to make sure you're taking advantage of that manufacturer's warranty. And that warranty is pretty solid. You're looking at a 3-year, 36,000 mile or 60,000 kilometer for the basic. And then powertrain is a 5-year, 60,000 mile or 100,000 kilometers, which is pretty respectable. But it is also contingent on you taking care of your ride, because if you're not performing maintenance, it could potentially end up voiding your warranty if you haven't maintained something properly and it's figured out that that's the cause of the issue. So just do yourself a favor, regular oil changes, regularly scheduled maintenance to get the best possible life out of your ride. Filling up fuel inside of the Bronco is just along the driver's side. It's an unlocked cover with a capless system. Minimum manufacturer's recommendation inside of this thing is technically just 87 octane, but I pointed it out under the hood. The horsepower and torque specs, if you want the best possible horsepower torque, you're going to want to use a 91 octane at a minimum. So if we look here, like minimum manufacturer's recommendation is just technically 87, but the best possible performance, because those turbos love premium, 91, 93 if it's available. The rear end of the Bronco, I think, still looks great, especially with that white painted roof. It just pops. Like, I love the contrast there. You've got a rear tow hook in the back, the reverse sensing system, and then this thing does have the option for the trailer tow package, which this one doesn't have. The overall towing capacity is going to depend on if you're in the 2.3 liter, the 2.7, or the 3 liter turbocharged engine instead. So the numbers are all over the place. The backup camera is right in the middle of this mounted wheel in the back. As long as you've got the key fob on you, there's a button on the very back there so you can push in order to lock the door. And then, like I said, as long as the key fob's on you, you can also slide your hand in order to be able to unlock and open. It's really straightforward. You've also got the rear wiper there. I'm popping this thing up. The back end of the Bronco is pretty naked, and you could easily remove the roof. The modular roof is easy to take the front two portions off. The rear portion here can be removed. It's a little bit of a pain and more of a two-person job, but it is still doable at the same time if you want that full open Bronco experience instead. There's not too much back here on the left-hand side. There's nothing along the right. There's a little woofer, a light, and then a 12-volt power point there too. Now this is also a little bit unique. So I think it was last year, Ford ended up introducing a slide-out tailgate as an option. You could get it aftermarket, but it's strictly available in the four-door variety of the Bronco. But you're going to have just a regular protector regardless, and then you've also got this nice look for the slide-out tailgate that's available too. The 4 tie-down hooks are still there, and then you can just grab this handle and slide in order to pop this thing out. It's got a 600-pound weight limit as well. So if you wanted to, I don't even know, what would you do? Like extend out for a bed if you just wanted to sit down and have a fire, whatever the case may be. But it is kind of neat that this thing is available. So you could do it aftermarket if you wanted to, but because this is the Heritage for the 2024 model, this thing is actually included, which is kind of neat. And just easily drop. Oh yeah, that's funny. So right on the very bottom, there's literally a guy sitting down, a person sitting down on the back there, and then there's a fire. That's kind of neat. But I mean, realistically, do you need it? No. Is it a nice accessory? Yeah, I think so. If you wanted to just be able to hang out and not just sit on your bumper, that's kind of neat. Folding down the second row seats, inside of the 4-door might be a little bit tricky unless you're tall. So in order to fold down the seats, all you're going to do, hop into the second row after the door's unlocked. Oh, there's a button along the very top in order to fold down the headrest. And then you can just pull in order to drop that seat for a fairly flat fold. But I mean, there's a ton of space inside of the Bronco here. There's also a tiny little bit of a lip. It's nowhere near as pronounced though when you have the added slide out tailgate, which is kind of nice. But the measurements that we're looking at here, it's going under the assumption we're measuring right from where the tailgate would close, or the swing gate I should say would close, but just right behind the armrest, in between the first row seats. So if the driver's seat or the passenger seat are forwards, backwards a little bit more, that would give you plus or minus a few extra inches, and those extra inches do matter. You're still gonna find the Bronco available either 2-door or 4-door. Inside of the 2-door, you don't have as much space for the second row. A little bit tricky to get into those second row seats. It's not impossible though. And not every trim level has the 2-door and the 4-door variety available. So it's just going to depend on which model of the vehicle you end up going for. But the Heritage Limited are available either 2 or 4-door. The side view mirrors in this thing are not power folding, but they do feature the blind spot monitoring system, and then they are heated as well. You've got just your base running board, and honestly, so this thing has not been freshly washed. It's a little bit dirty, which I mean is kind of nice, because you can see what this is actually going to look like if you don't take meticulous care of your Bronco, and this thing hasn't been ceramic coated or anything either. But the handle here, you've got a little button so you can lock, and then as long as you've got the fob on you, slide your hand in order to unlock. And similar to last year, so you've got your handle, unlock, lock buttons, and then a little mesh storage. I like that weave texture that follows all the way throughout the dash. And then even the highlights, like that red that follows through the stitching, the grab handle, and then the vents. I think it looks nice. As always, you've got the option of adjusting what's going on with your lamps. I always just recommend keeping yourself in the auto mode. Toggle your fog lamps on or off, increase, decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. There's the electronic parking brake, and then the hood release as well. The plaid seats inside of this, super retro, pretty neat. I know, it's kind of unique, but depending on the type of, or the model of the Bronco and the packages you've added on, it might be manual or power. So this one's gonna be a full manual seat. So you can pull there in order to slide the seat forwards, backwards, so that little bar will be in between your legs. This is going to adjust your lumbar support, so you can kind of see it going there. You can increase, or like I guess raise, so increase or decrease the height of the seat. Yeah, there we go, we'll go with that. And then you've also got the option of adjusting your backrest there too. So, very straightforward. But, this is nice. Oh, this is nice. Let's do a little start up here. Love that bucking Bronco there. Solid. All right, so this is the steering wheel that you're going to find inside of the Bronco. Little bucking Bronco in the middle. And then this is just the regular cruise control. So you do have the option for the adaptive cruise, but you have to be in the Hilux package in order to get it. And the Heritage, the regular Heritage, doesn't have the option for that package, unfortunately. But you can increase or decrease the volume, series of different buttons in order to navigate through the cluster screen, and a few others. But if you want to walk through, like you want to know how to use the cruise control system, navigate through the cluster screen, or even use the infotainment system, you'll find those walkthroughs down in the description of this video. The wheel, like I said, feels really nice. It's manual telescoping, and it's just by your left knee there. So you'd have a release up along the top. As always, to the dash, you've got, I guess, good visibility in the dash there. Not too much space blocked for the pillars, but you've got your little mount. So if you wanted to mount a GoPro or other accessory, you could. And then you've got a series of other buttons, and each one of these do something different. So you've got your locking differentials for your front rear. There's also trail turn assist. So that's going to lock up your innermost rear wheel. Where that really comes in handy is if you're navigating through very tight terrain off-road. So like I said, innermost rear wheel. So when you go to crank the wheel, it's essentially going to lock and pivot so you can get around an obstacle a little bit easier. There's also traction control and your four-way blinkers. I love that texture though. It's kind of neat. It's obviously like you're not going to have carbon fiber right here, but if you want to do a wrap carbon fiber, you could. I just think that looks neat, and it follows all the way through the bottom too. Now this is the Sync 4 infotainment system that you're going to find inside of the Bronco. It's the same as last year for the most part, and the most part is actually with the factory navigation. So one change that came for a lot of Ford vehicles last year, and then especially for the 2024, is with factory nav. Before, it was a connected built-in navigation. And what that meant was that after the 1 year of, after the years of connected services were up, it would essentially revert to a regular GPS that you could use freely. But inside of the connected navigation, which is now the norm, you have 1 year of connected services. After that 1 year of connected services are up, this would just move to a dead moving map. So it would just follow you around as you drive, and you wouldn't have the option of entering in an end destination. So that's the downside of the new connected navigation versus the built-in. But you do have the flexibility of connecting to either Android or iPhone devices to use Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze through iPhones, and then Google Maps or Waze through Androids. But so if you want to walk through on how to set that up, you'll find it down in the description of this video. It's like one thing, unfortunately, Ford's going to more of like a pay-as-you-go model for a lot of things, but there are a series of different settings that are available inside of this thing. A ton of different options. And like even for media, like you've got different sources that are available. So AM, FM, Sirius XM, and Bluetooth. You could hook your phone up over Bluetooth if you wanted to stream audio that way. And then you could do it through Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. If you had a USB stick with MP3s on it, you could also plug yourself in. It's only going to go one of two ways. It'll probably do it wrong both times. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. All right, so plug myself in, and it'll just take a second. Now, there are a few different speaker options that are available inside of the Bronco. Inside of the Lux package, that's when you get into the upgraded Bang & Olufsen. I love the audio sound inside of that, but I'm going to let you listen to this one so you can kind of get an understanding of what it's like. It's still pretty good at the same time. Okay, here we go.
Times it feels like nobody's right, yeah. So I'ma figure out what else we succeed.
Okay, so that's half volume.
Into that and proceed. I need whatever the hell could make me happy, and I don't think you have a clue what could that be. They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do something that could.
So that's the audio at half volume. So the audio inside of this thing, the base speaker system, is still pretty solid. So it's not as good as the upgraded system, but I think for most people, like, I think that's going to be good enough for most people. But I mean, you could always do something aftermarket if you really wanted to, but I think that's a solid sound all at the same time. Nice. Shifting down the center stack there are a ton of other options. So you've got your volume rocker, tuning rocker. You've also got dual zone climate control. Heated seats are available there. And then you've also got your basic climate control settings. There are a few USB power points down there. And then some versions of the Bronco are also going to have a wireless charge pad, which is unfortunately not available in the regular Heritage version of the vehicle. You've got this little highlight there, so estimated 1966. Nice little highlight with that red. Again, the red, I love it. You've got all of those red highlights all the way throughout. I just think it looks really solid. The shifter inside of this thing, so it's a 10-speed automatic transmission. So one nice thing is that you do have this dedicated manual mode. So when you're in the manual mode, if you wanted to, you could adjust gears out yourself. It's honestly like driving paddle shifters or like a manual transmission instead. So if you actually want to walk through on how to use paddle shifters or how to use this manual mode and the reasons why you'd want to use it, I've put together a video explaining it. So you can find that down in the description of this video. On top of that, you've got all of your different goat modes. So go over any terrain. And honestly, I love the animation as you move through. So normal, eco, sport, slippery, mud, rut, sand mode. And then flipping over the other way. Oh, I guess that would be all of them. But so each mode is going to do something different. So it's going to play with your traction control, your stability control. Sport mode is going to change out your shift points. And then other modes are going to change up whether you're in 2 high, 4 high, whatever the case may be. But if you want a fuller walkthrough or an understanding of the different goat modes, you'll find that down in the description as well. But you do have, because this is the advanced 4x4 system, you've got your 2 high that you're going to be in the majority of the time. 4 high is going to be for like snowy conditions, slippery conditions, etc. 4 auto if you want the vehicle to determine what it's going to be doing. 4 low if you're going to be going off-roading, pulling a boat out of water, all that fun stuff. You've got your controls for your side view mirrors, all of your basic window controls, kill off power to those rear windows if you want to. The glove box inside of this thing is the armrest inside of this thing is lockable. I guess the glove box is lockable too, but that's the glove box, that's the armrest. Lifting up, this thing has a removable tray, and then there's also a 12-volt power point down there too. I love it. I like that highlight, that's great. I did mention, so this thing, fully lockable, decent amount of storage space in there. Shooting up overhead, this is going to have a auto-dimming rear view mirror. From there, all of your basic controls for your cabin lights. There's a little sunglasses holder too. And from there, there's nothing on the inside there, or the outside, I should say. The inside, you've got a little ticket receipt holder, vanity mirror with lights built in. And then this thing stretches out a surprising amount, which is kind of nice. One thing to point out is that this specific one doesn't have aux switches, but the aux switches with pre-wiring is available in some of the other trim levels of the vehicle. You could add in the aux switches as well if you wanted to for wiring in dash cams and other things easily. Did mention, so this one is going to be the modular roof, so you could pull off these pieces fairly easily themselves if you wanted to. This piece, easy to pull off in the first row. This piece in the second row is easy to pull off, but when you get into the back end of the vehicle, it is really tricky in order to pull that back one off yourself. But there are a ton of great videos that showcase how to remove the roof, so I'll link to those in the description of this video too. Overall seat comfort, surprisingly, is there. And like I've had the seat warmers going for a bit, and it is really, really comfortable. Hold on, with the seat, there we go. The seat is far down as it's gonna go. It's outrageous. Like if you're 6'6", 6'8", you'll probably be able to fit inside of this thing, no problem. Maybe 6'6". 6'8", it'd be tight, maybe doable, but maybe with the roof off. But this is a ridiculous amount of space that you're gonna find inside of this thing. So hold on, let's get the seat up a little bit more. The manual seat, I'm not crazy about it, but I mean, it's not difficult to use all at the same time. And with the driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, inside of the second row, I've got a good amount of knee space, great amount of foot space, and up overhead, sitting fully upright, 4.5-ish inches of head space, which is pretty solid. But the seat in the second row, not too bad. It's obviously not as comfortable as the first row, but it's still pretty nice at the same time. Like the cloth seats, they are pretty good. Spacing wise, like I said, overhead space is pretty good. 3 full-size adults might be a little bit tight, so you're gonna have to kind of squeeze them a little bit. But the middle seat here, a little bit tight, like a little bit, just because there's that hump in the middle there. So, I mean, if you need the space, it is there, but it's whoever's stuck in that middle seat. Maybe a little bit uncomfortable. You're gonna find some pockets behind both the driver and the passenger side in the second row. And then just behind the armrest here, so popping down, you've also got your basic window controls. Along the one side, you've got a few USB power points, so a USB, USB Type-C, and then there's also a regular wall outlet, so 400 watt wall outlet back there too, which is kind of nice. But other than that, there's not really too much. Like, you've got all of your airbags all over the place, just in case something happens. From there's a little light along the very back as well, and then a few small cup holders that are baked right into this seat too, which is kind of nice. And that was a look at the 2024 Ford Bronco, specifically the Heritage. But you can find a build link for this specific Bronco down in the description, the contact details for Yorkdale Ford, and all the tech walkthrough videos as well. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until I see you next time, take care.